Let's have a look, see if anybody's
It's thinking about it.
Yeah.
I wonder if a lot of it is internet feed,
I think sometimes there's a delay. Whenever, oh, there you go. It is telling us that we're streaming live on Facebook, but I can't see us in the group.
Tony tells us that we are now live.
Hello.
We're now live in the Facebook. Hi, everyone.
We're having to check on two. Tony will have to be our backup guy who tells us what the heck's going on.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. Glad that you can get here live with us this evening, and hopefully technology will hold up. It doesn't always work, what these things are like live. But Trish and I want to talk to you tonight about something really, really exciting that, we have been working on now for probably a couple of years, chatting it around, talking about it. People have been saying, you really need to do this. And we've been saying, do we really want to do it now? Anyway, we've jumped in with both feet and we are doing. So over to Trish, just to tell you a little bit more about what's coming.
Right. Okay. So let's start off with everything that's great about property sourcing as a business. Let's start off with all the great stuff. We'll do a wee bit of not so great stuff, and then we'll talk about solutions in a little minute. For those of you who know me and obviously have been around Tina's group, but obviously there's a bit of crossover between people who know us both. Sourcing as a business can be a very, very, very good, interesting, challenging, wonderful way for you to not just make money, forget about making money for a wee minute, but to have a good business. It's a good way for you to get involved in property. It's a good way for you to start to learn more about property, and it's an absolutely phenomenal way, if you set it up properly, for you to get paid for that knowledge and get paid for that skill and that experience. And obviously, Tina, you've been around in property since 2005, and I've been around property since 2003. And we've kind of done a lot of stuff in the intervening whatever number of years.
Yeah, don't go there.
It's right now. And I mean, I have a great affection for people who want to come into property and get started, just like I did, just like you did all those years ago. Except in my case, I came into property coming in from a business consulting and training and coaching background. That's where I was earning my money and using that money to buy property. But I also have done the whole sourcing thing. And I've sourced international property, I've sold off-plan property, and I've had my own estate agency. So in those intervening years, not only have I looked after buying stuff for myself, but I've bought for others, and learned a lot in that time scale, as I know you have too. And one of the things that I want to be able to say is, in all that time, the fundamentals of property's never changed. The markets have changed. Strategies that people are using to acquire property and build a portfolio, those things have often, they've changed, but only from the point of view of sometimes the name on the door is just a new name for a thing that we were maybe doing 10, 15, 20 years ago. But the business basics haven't changed. And there's more training out there now than there ever was. There's loads of ways for you to learn. Whatever entry level you want to be at, whether you're coming in with a bit of knowledge and experience, or whether you're absolutely brand new, that's the stuff that's great about what we're doing and the industry that we're involved in. But like you, I also have other business interests. Like you, outside of doing property investing and whatever, we have other interests. And obviously, Tina, you and I have known each other quite a while, and I've known you and Tony for quite a while now. And we've both got our own stuff that we train on. We've got our fundamentals that we know really well and that we're passionate about, and we train people on. But we've had 20 years of experience before we've brought that knowledge out to the marketplace. And we haven't got the biggest highest profile in the world. But what we do have is not just the passion, but the experience to have seen it through boom and bust and changes in strategy and all of the other stuff that goes with it. So that's the great stuff. The not so great stuff is, and certainly for me, and where I guess we come in, was how many people have invested in training, how many people have tried to come into this industry, how many people have come in with as many dreams and schemes and hopes and plans that I've ever had, but have never made any money at it. That's that's the bit that for me is the what's wrong, not with what's being taught, because there's a lot of great stuff being taught, but what's missing. What's missing? What is it? What's the secret sauce? What's the ingredient that makes a difference between someone who actually goes out and makes some money in property and people who don't? Now, some guys will say, and this is the bad stuff, it's you've been taught wrong, or you're too lazy. You're too lazy to make it work. You're not good enough to make it work. There's nothing wrong with the training. It's all about you. And I disagree with that, because I've seen a lot of very, very good people who know a lot of the strategies that can tell me what the strategies are. That can tell me how to make the strategies work. They can tell me everything. But when I look at their business and I look at what they're doing on a day-to-day basis, and when I look at what they're focusing their attention on, the bit that's missing is actually the business fundamentals. It's not the strategy, it's the fundamentals. And that's where you and I came in. You know, you do the compliance stuff, and I'm looking for the business fundamentals. I'm looking at people who understand how to set up a business of sourcing property, not learning to source property and then having to work out how to run the business afterwards. And that's the bit that I think's missing. That's the bit where you and I came into the conversation, and that's why we're having this live now. There's a lot of really good people out there who are still not making any money, who have the capacity to make the money, the capacity to run it as a business, but what they need is the business fundamentals.
Yeah, and what's missing is that entire framework, isn't it, Trish?
Yeah.
Which is what we've been chatting about today and what we've been talking about for a while. And for everyone to be aware, Trish and I are working on standards, what are known as standards and frameworks, which I guess sets us apart from a lot of the other education companies at the moment, in that we're not just sourcing about how you find the deals, how you find the investor. We're sourcing on the whole business structure as a complete and utter framework, with strategies added on as modules.
Yeah.
So basically, it's the whole kit and caboodle.
Yeah, because I sent out an email earlier on, and again, whoever's for the folk that are watching are kind of wondering what we're on about tonight. If I liken this in an email that I sent out, that to learn how to drive a car. So it's like being shown, or at least given an indication of how to drive the car, without anybody ever making sure you've gone through all of the bits that make the car work. So theoretically, you can say, this is how you drive a car. I'm going to show you, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to walk you through the manual of how to do it. And you go, great, got it. Then the course is finished. Then you've got to go and drive the car without any instruction in the fundamentals of how to actually do it in practice, and also how to maintain the car so the car stays on the road. Those are the bits, you know, and let me say this in plain terms, you and I plain speaking. These are the bits that in business are boring. They're not exciting strategy, woo, but you know, whatever. They're not. They are, but they are. It's like having the car with having no wheels on it. It ain't going to go anywhere. It's a car, but it ain't going to actually do what it's supposed to do. So unless we show people how to put the wheels on the car and put petrol in the car and maintain the car, every strategy they learn out there, whether it's rent to rent or sourcing buy to lets or whatever, lease options, all the strategies that are amazing and brilliant and wonderful, and I love them all. Those aren't any use to you. No. Unless you know how to actually turn them into something that's a business. And I want to say this also about the guys that are saying, well, part-time, you know, what if I want to do it part-time? The same thing applies. You gotta still run through all the same fundamental stages to get paid, whether you're only going to work an hour a week or whether you're going to work 30 hours a week.
It doesn't make any difference.
Yeah. And again, we're not knocking anybody else's training. No. But it's easy to teach strategy. With respect, I know it's easy to teach strategy. You know it's easy to teach strategy. We can, you know, I teach strategies now. Yeah, except I tend to stick to the ones that I love the most. But any agent can teach you strategy. But to set up a business is a totally different thing.
And to actually have to earn cash and know how to make it earn cash, know about how the structure of the business and the operational side of the business is key, not just the strategy, but everything that you have to have in place, all of the cogs working together that set you up as a business, and then have the leads coming in. You have a process to deal with the leads and filter them. You have a process that then filters out the ones that you want to view, filters out the ones that you want to package up and send over to your investors. And you have to have these filters and processes and step-by-step processes for every step of the way.
Along the way.
It's kind of like a McDonald's company, not brochure, but you know what I mean? It's a huge folder, isn't it, that McDonald's have for their franchisees.
Right.
And it's a working folder which tells them exactly how to make a damn burger.
That's right.
How they're supposed to meet customer service. And this is what Trish and I are talking about, is basically everything that sits around the company, not just the setup. And we're not just talking about compliance. I know I witter on about compliance a lot, but I said the other day that compliance is great, but it does not in any way, shape or form mean you're going to earn money.
No.
It's part of the overall puzzle of everything that comes together. And I think a lot of people out there have got some bits of the puzzle, but they don't know how to fit them all together. They don't know what's missing, and therefore they can't make the money. And I think that's probably the problem, Trish.
Yeah. And one of the things, as I say, Tina, that you know, we've obviously kicked around as we've been talking about doing this, and the reason we've held off, it's not that we don't know our stuff, and it's not that we don't think that we can do something amazing, which obviously we've decided to do now. But it's that there's a lot of choice out there. There's a lot of very, very good training out there. There's some stuff that's questionable, but there's some very good stuff out there. But again, it's strategy led. And with my business hat on, with my business consulting hat on, anybody who ever asks for my advice, whether it's a complete freebie, which I do a lot of, you do a lot of, when I look at why they're not making money, it's the same fundamentals over and over and over again that's actually preventing them from getting that bit of success, getting that first deal, getting that first lead over the line. But one of them is the other bit, and that is sourcing as a business, and indeed many property strategies. They're not instant riches. They're not, I'm going to go out tonight and in 2 weeks' time I'm going to have my first 27 investors on board. For them, I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but for the majority of people, there's a time lag between getting started, getting trained, getting confident, and actually getting paid.
And there's a cost, which isn't often talked.
There's a cost.
And 100%. It's not just about the registrations and the insurance either, because it's like anything else. You have training on the strategies, but then don't have the cash left to have training on the compliance bit. I'm just checking on them as best I can on questions if we've got any. I've just had a couple that just let me check. Where's the link to Zoom? Some people are saying, oh no. Let me, while you talk, Tina, I'll go and see if I can tell people where the link is. In the meantime, Sherry's put a question in the Facebook that says, and it says, I became compliant 2 months ago and I'm concentrating most of my efforts on social housing. That's not to say I'm ignoring private. I just felt a need to focus on just one thing. You are so right about the business. I work full time and I'm currently struggling to know what to do first, i.e. set up my business so it works. I seem to be doing a lot, but making no headway. What would you recommend to do to get the processes and structure in place?
Well, again, back to strategy. It's back to strategy, isn't it? It's back to, well, if you have a particular strategy that's sourcing for you, and I started off sourcing, as I think many investors do, and basically the person you're sourcing for is yourself. You're right there looking for something that meets the plan that you have. For me, it was simple buy-to-let properties. I wasn't looking for flips. I wasn't looking to whatever. I was looking to use some capital that I had in my existing business, my consulting business, and use that capital to buy some properties for me, to get an income for the long term for my pension. That's where I came from. So again, if someone's talking social housing or whatever, what I want to say every time is, if you're sourcing for someone, know who your customer is. We use this phrase all the time in compliance, don't we? Know your customer. And if you are sourcing for a dead marketplace. So in other words, the marketplace in your area has shifted completely its focus to, you know, I don't know, social housing, for example. And you have a very limited pool of investors who want the product you have. Well, like any business, supply and demand, you've got to be sourcing for what clients want. The exception to that is if you have cultivated and curated your own pool of investors. I don't mean an investor list, Tina. Again, back to this thing. I don't mean an investor list. But if you have a properly cultivated client list of investors that specifically want something, and you are their go-to guy or gal, or other pronouns considered, if you are that person that they trust implicitly to be able to go out and do the due diligence, do the research, do the calculations, do the numbers, do the viewings, put in the offers, and they value, and why wouldn't you, by the way, why wouldn't you value that as an amazing service? Then that's different. You can buck the trend in whatever the hot market is doing, and you can say, well, whatever the hot market's doing, I'm not interested because I've got my own group of specific clients. Neither model is wrong. It's back to then, what is it that you want to do with your business? Again, sometimes that's not asked.
No, it's not. And a lot of times sources go out there and want to source everything, every single strategy. And you and I always say, see what works on your area that's closest to you and focus on one strategy and get good at that. And then look at something else. Sherry says, I do know the demand for social housing and I know the areas. This isn't really the problem. It's more getting a structure set up because I don't know what to do first. I have so much going on in my head. I'm a bit of a busy fool. The thing is, Sherry, if you know the social housing market, and I know it because I used to work in healthcare, you know what areas work. Are you working with housing associations to find products for them? Or are you linked in with care companies that have a demand and you're finding the properties that suit their purposes and then finding the investors that are interested in investing? Because I guess it depends on which focus area you're on as to what your procedures will be. And we're going back to procedures now. Whichever way it is, sit down with a pen and a piece of paper. And this is what I did in the beginning. And this is where my procedures came from. Start at the end and work your way back. From you found a property, so you're working with care providers and then finding an investor that will purchase a property for them. So if you've already got the care providers on board, make a list of exactly what their criteria is, and I mean the exact criteria and the geographical areas, sizes of property, types of property. Are they looking for HMOs? Are they looking for single family lets? Is it going to be care provision with sleeping nights for the carers to sit in? All of that information you need. And then find the investor that fulfills the criteria, that one is interested in that market. The market is popular at the moment, shall we say. I guess maybe because in part of what's happened with COVID and buy-to-lets, maybe people not paying the rent, and to a certain extent, you get what's known as guaranteed rent on fixed terms with a full repair and insure contract, although there are never any full guarantees, but it's about as guaranteed as you get. You need to know that the investor is interested in that market, is willing to leave the money tied up, and also dependent on what strategy you're looking at. If they're working on what is known as housing allowances for the rent, it could be lower than the standard rent for the area. If you're looking at higher end niched care, the rental could actually be sometimes in some cases 50% increased, 25% increased on that score. So it depends on which area you're looking down. So focus on the care side of it, exactly what it is that you're going to provide, put together an information brochure, and then go out and see if you can find some investors that are interested in the social sector and specifically in the product that you are going to produce. Don't try and spread too thinly on doing all sorts of different products. Work with one care provider that wants one particular type of product and fine tune your brochure and strategy for that. When it works and you get some deals in, you can have a look at spreading out onto some different ones, but I would focus on one first as you're struggling with the focus. One care provider, one strategy, one investment property type, put all of that information together and then go find the investors that are looking and that fits their investment criteria, Sherry.
100%, can't agree more. Sorry guys, while I was distracted doing that, because there's other guys on my page are checking that they got the right link, so hopefully we're okay with that. So this is what happens when you're live. You kind of got to do all things to people. Yeah, so as I say, Tina, that you're absolutely bang on there, because I think Sherry, and thank you Sherry for even for sharing that, because as you say, sometimes we are so focused on what strategy works, what works. In other words, how am I getting paid? Let's shorthand that for what's going to get me paid the easiest. And I know we're going to do a session on what sourcing strategy pays you the fastest. But ultimately, we're always going to be saying it doesn't really matter which strategy it is, because if you don't have and don't cultivate within your business the product attached to the client who's buying that product, in other words, an investor or group of investors or corporate investor, you could spend an awful lot of your time just going, this week my strategy is social housing, so people who want social housing. Next month you could, oh well, actually that didn't work this month, so now I'm going to source for service accommodation, because loads of people want to go back into service accommodation because we're all out of lockdown and suddenly the bookings have gone through the roof and everybody wants SA again. If you are tying yourself to a trend based strategy for sourcing, and I mean following the trends, you will always be slightly behind the wave. Always. This is the thing with following a trend, because the trend's already started. And if you're in at the right part of the trend, brilliant. If you are behind that curve, behind that wave, you can miss out. I mean, you might get the tail end, but sometimes you miss out. The reason we're saying about being a professional property sourcer, completely aware of what's happening in your market, completely aware of who it is you confidently want to attract and work with, and you know exactly how you're going to attract those clients, how you're going to work with those clients, how you're going to onboard those clients, how you're going to set your business out to work with estate agents or landlords or whatever. The reason we're saying that is because then you are telling your clients what's happening in the market. You're advising your clients, which is where your status as a sourcer goes up. Because we have seen so many guys taking a pop at sourcers. It's still happening out there. There are some investors that are taking a pop at sourcers on a regular basis, saying it's a non-job. Basically, it's a gopher. All you're paying for is someone to go and do viewings for you. You could do all this yourself. Yeah, you can do it all yourself. However, there are a lot of investors out there who don't have the time, the energy, or even the inclination to do it for themselves. So yeah, I think if you're doing the whole trend sourcing, so this month I'm sourcing because I'm into social housing, and 3 months from now I'll follow another trend, you potentially are putting your business at risk if that's all you're doing and you're following the trend of the month, because there'll always be a trend. So my advice would always be to have that core bit of your business, and every business should have a really solid core on which it builds, and get a core of your business, get that working really well. So you know your market, you know the players in your marketplace, you know the agents, you know the solicitors, you have built up a solid network. And that's going to take time. It does not happen in 5 minutes. It doesn't even happen in 5 months. It's a lifelong commitment to building your business and your network. Yeah. Yes. But if people want to hear BS, they're kind of, listening to the wrong people tonight, maybe.
Sherry says, I want to be a property investor too, but I'm using this to earn additional money and get experience.
Fabulous.
Yeah, that's fine, Sherry. It's not a problem at all. It's a great way to learn. But if you get overly stressed or overrun with information, you can't cope with it, simplify it down.
Yeah.
Keep things simple, keep it down to one strategy, and don't put too much pressure on yourself to expect to learn it in 30 seconds flat. It is not going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, as we were talking earlier on, Tina, earlier on today, Tina and I are talking about professional standards. Now, professional standards are not the same as someone runs a course and they teach it their particular way. Professional standards are what governs a whole industry. Tina and I both come from very compliant-led backgrounds, both come from very corporate-led backgrounds before we ever came into business. And we're bringing that commitment to helping people, you know, not just develop standards, but work to a set of standards that don't just mean you're working well and you're working compliantly, but that you can rely on the outcome. You know, if standards are followed, if you've got, and it's really boring stuff, but again, if you think of standards as being, this is how I do business so that your clients can see how you work. There's a degree of confidence in that when you onboard a new client and that client has absolute faith that you know what you're talking about. You've cut your teeth on, you know, the experience, as Sherry's saying now, got the experience. This is how I've gained that experience. This is how I've turned that experience into a service that my clients value. That's built on standards. That's built on principles. And that's what we want to bring. That's what we're bringing to the marketplace now. It's not just we're going to teach sourcing. It's that we are saying, you know, break this down into chunks that you can implement and get a result.
Yeah. So this is what Trish and I have done. We've broken everything down into what we're calling modules.
Yes.
Basically from start to finish, with add-ons all on the in-between. And that term I was thinking about earlier this afternoon, I couldn't come up with it. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Best practice.
Best practice, right? Yeah. Okay. So same thing. Standards are best practice, like minimum. This is how we know that this business runs the way it is. Sherry's asking a few more questions. We'll come back to a couple of those questions in a minute. Sherry, thank you for this. Well done, Sherry. Just keeping us going in questions. So best practices can become the standards of your business. So again, we're not saying that we're setting standards out and they will be the only standards in the whole of what's ever written on sourcing. But if we don't have something that we believe in, and Tina and I believe that if we help you get the fundamentals right, the other stuff is, I'll not say easy, but it's easier.
It will fall into place easier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sherry, templates. Right, templates for deals. That's one of the things that's one of our standards. Right? How many times have we been asked when we've done some clubhouse calls, we've done the property sourcers meet that we have every fortnight now, and we've had some people say to us, you know, what yield should you look for in a deal? And we've said every single time, the yield you look for in a deal will be dependent on what your individual client wants. You know, if they say I want a 10% or 20% yield, they're not going to get that on the average buy-to-let property, but they may well get it on an HMO or even on a commercial property. And you might advise them that what they're looking for, they need to change their strategy or modify their strategy to get there. This is why a sourcer shouldn't just be the gopher. The sourcer is the advisor, the consultant. That's the industry that you are coming into and the industry you should aspire to be a member of.
Yeah, we don't advise whether it's a good investment or not, but what you can say to them is, I know on the area that I work that kind of return is not available at this point in time because I have sourced these deals and this is about the best that we can get because this is the purchase price, this is about the annual rent, and this is therefore approximate yield. Yeah.
And even, you know, right down to, as we said, Tina, right down to this notion that from the start, when you start marketing to when you close a deal, the property has been bought, it's been signed off and whatever, your relationship with that client doesn't end at that moment in time. No. You know, the standard of not just your duty of care to your client, but your duty of care to your own business.
To get them cash in the bank, for one thing.
It goes beyond that, doesn't it? It goes beyond the bit where you go, thanks, I've been paid my $2,500 deal, I'm out of here, mate.
Yeah.
Right down to what happens next. What happens if the client says, well, that's fine, I'm going to manage it myself, which they probably will do, or they're going to get an agent and something goes wrong. You know, a professional sourcer is going to have an aftercare service in their business somehow. And if you have an aftercare service with your clients, you're actually going to generate some brand loyalty. So we're back to business fundamentals again. If you're going to generate brand loyalty to you and to your business, that client is going to come back to you over and over and over again, and they're going to recommend you.
And it's being taught. When investors recommend you, you no longer have to go out and delve into the depths of Facebook and LinkedIn and go advertising and all sorts of other stuff, because basically they come to you. But it does take time, and you've got to work with a couple of investors, 2 or 3 investors, and get the deals over the line first. But it does happen, and word of mouth does work as long as you provide that professional service.
Yeah. So a couple of other things then, Tina, obviously that we're covering that we're not saying it's never covered in other programs, but it's fundamental. It's our best practice standards that we've said, and that's down to, you know, keeping that deal flow.
Yeah.
You know, your lead flow. You know, my little set. I mean, again, I'll bore people because, you know, I have my little mantras that I want people to remember. You know, no leads equals no opportunity. No opportunity equals no deals. No deals equals no dosh. And people who think I can pick up and put down my marketing when it suits, then what will happen is that their deal flow will hit boom and bust, boom and bust, boom and bust all of the time. And then they'll wonder why it's not happening. Alan's asking if we're on Zoom. I can't find the link. No, Alan, we're just in here live, my darling. So I think as long as you can see us on screen, you've got us. So yeah, it's that whole deal flow, and we need progression of things at different stages.
I have a little story around that, Trish, that might be useful for people where it hurt us significantly. When I decided to write a book, we had 3 deals actually on the healthcare sector, 3 land deals. I thought in the bag, all sorted out, about 75k's fees between them. We had a nice lump sum in the bank. I was sitting back and being J.K. Rowling, writing my book. Thought it would take 6 months, took 18 months, completely took my foot off the pedal of marketing, networking and everything else. All 3 deals fell over, and a big hole dropped out because all of my other investors at that point in time, we'd fulfilled the criteria. I stopped focusing. I stopped focusing, and I lost focus on that business because I was writing the book. And at that point, guys, believe it or not, we had no income in our sourcing business for 2 years because of this. I'd built up relationships, and I'd built up a professional business, but because I'd taken my foot off the damn pedal for basically 12 months, they went cold. They were no longer know, like, trust. I had to go back out there and build it up again, and that takes time. So the lesson learned is, once you've built it and you have momentum going, don't stop. Keep it going, no matter how much you've got in the pipeline. A bit more doesn't hurt. And a lot of stuff in the pipeline will not complete, guys. It's majority of it won't.
It's like sometimes the best cheeses. You know, you might start off with the ingredients of the cheese, but the cheese is actually ready to eat in maybe 18 months for some people. One of the questions Kim has just asked, thank you, Kim, is how are you finding and gaining trust and working on a relationship with potential investors given the pandemic? I don't think the pandemic has made any difference to the appetite for a lot of investors to be in the marketplace and to be active in the marketplace.
We're still getting inquiries weekly via our website, Facebook, LinkedIn. They get my email from word of mouth recommendation, email me, and a lot of investors are now desperately trying to get into the market because I think they can see what may or may not be coming, but we think there'll probably be quite a few repossessions going forward when furlough finishes completely and we start coming out of this and people start losing their jobs and houses start being repossessed, and investors are positioning themselves now and looking for sources to work with that have the knowledge in the market locally to be able to help them, because they can't do all of it. They're cash rich, time poor. They need you guys, but they need you to be professional. We're getting weekly emails from these guys, and we're up to the hilt at the moment of how many we can take on board. Because the other thing is as well, don't think that you need a list of 100, 200, 300. And I don't care if people turn around and say, I've got a list of 3,000 investors. Well, fantastic. But my first question is, how many of those have bought from you in the last 12 months?
Exactly. And
I'd be surprised if it's more than 1 or 2, maybe a few more, depends on who it is that's got the list. All you need is one investor to start off with that is primed, prepped, foot on the pedal and ready to actually invest. And you can get, if they want 5 deals that year, that's you learning your trade in year 1, that you can then adjust how you work, learn and adapt for the next year and then expand out. We're getting referrals, but other than that, when we want to go out to the market, I think Trish says, you know, talk about what you do.
Absolutely. I mean,
What's your
the
social
secret
media profile say about you? What
the secret is in something that Kim has said here, though. How are you finding and gaining trust? Gaining trust. Gaining trust is one of those things, and working in a relationship, that is, Kim, that's the essence. That's the essence of what your job is. Forget about for a moment trying to sell them a deal or trying to get them signed up or trying to whatever. If what you are doing in your business now is understanding that you want to find a certain type of investor. Okay, so for the sake of argument, it's a semi-retired or soon-to-retire teacher who's got £100,000 in cash lump sum who wants to invest half of that into a simple income-generating property. Right, so if that's your profile, then your work is not immediately, I've got to go out and network with every single teacher there is, but it's to work backwards from where do those people hang out? Who do they talk to? What do they read? What influences their thinking? You know, and it's working out. It's working out literally. How do you? Don't go in immediately going as soon as I'm in a network where they're there. I'm buying property for you guys. The relationship building comes first, and the business comes afterwards. And again, I guess where sometimes we get this wrong is everybody's trying to get immediately to the punchline. You know, so many people are trying to get to the punchline, which is, here's my terms of business. I take a £300 deposit, sign up with me, and I'll go and find you 20 properties. The most important thing you can do is talk to that person about their dreams, their goals, their aspirations, the things that worry them about getting involved, or the experiences they already have, maybe with other sourcers. Because if you find out, Kim, that they've had other issues, you need to almost show how you are different to the people they've done business with before. In the same way that obviously Tina and I are talking about why our sourcing, our whole business program, it's not just a sourcing program, it's a whole sourcing business compliance program, why it is different to what's out there, because nothing like it exists, where it combines from the word go every element that you need. It doesn't exist. Well, it does, because we've launched it. We're launching it on the 12th of April.
Kim, you asked about because we can't meet up properly. Kim, to be honest with you, I never, ever, ever, ever meet any prospective investor face to face unless they're around the corner from me until they've signed my terms of business and paid me the registration fee, because I have learned over the years that you can waste tons of time touring around the country, having great coffee, cake and lunches with people who have no intentions of paying you a sourcing fee.
Yeah.
And that was a lesson that I learned incredibly quickly and over a reasonable period of time, because it was costing. And what you guys don't want is to spend a lot of money thinking that you're getting investors on board when actually you don't even know if they're in a position to buy, because believe it or not, people lie about how much cash they've got. And even if they've got it, it doesn't mean that when it comes down to the crunch, they'll actually damn well spend it.
You're gonna part with it. That's right. We've all had deals when we think, oh great, this investor's going to buy it, and then they go, oh well, you know, it's the wrong color of house. It's the, you know, it's too pink or too green or too blue or too, you know, whatever.
The backyard faces northeast and I want northwest.
Yeah, the back garden was, you know, facing in the wrong, whatever.
So don't worry about not being able to meet up face to face. I was on Clubhouse last night and we were chatting about some ways of, at the moment, of engaging with more investors, maybe quickly. So if you've got 3 or 4 that want to work with you, what I suggested is that you do a Zoom conference call with all of them, but have some information prepped as a presentation about who you are, your background, what you're doing, the area, what strategy you focus on, what you expect from your investors, what they can expect from you. And even if you haven't done a deal before, you can still get stats for what would work as a buy-to-let, or what might work as a HMO. And you can say, these deals have been available on my area. Would anybody be interested in working closer with me? And would you like a one-to-one telephone conversation? And that way you can move them from having a Zoom conference call to saying, okay, how interested are you? Do you want a one-to-one call with me? And the idea is, Kim, that you build in filters for tire kickers and time wasters all the way through your process until you get to the point where they've signed up and they're working with you. And it's a series of, in your procedures that we were talking about earlier, that you take them through that gets rid of those time wasters.
100%. One of the things, Adlan has been asking, what do I find first, the deal or the investor? My feeling is it's a bit like saying, should I do some marketing or should I go and do more training? The answer is both. The answer is both. Because in every single, as you said, Tina, in every single deal, you've worked the numbers through. So whether you've been to see the property, whether you have done the due diligence, you've done the comparables, you've run the numbers, you've looked at the different angles on that property, on what that deal could look like. All of those are essential parts of you learning to drive this car. You know, so they always say you learn to drive the car after you've passed your test, don't you? So you do the test tells you that theoretically you know how to do this and somebody sat down and watched you do it, but the actual road sense and all of those other things that you need,
and the smoothness that comes with experience.
100%. So yeah, so Adlan, that's what I'd say. You have to do both.
That you want. There's you know, pros and cons from each. If you set aside compliance at the moment, which I will do, it's not illegal to work either way. If one comes before the other one, then work that way. The only thing that I would say to you is, as I'm compliance queen, I'm going to mention it. There are caveats. Trish is laughing at me.
No, it's spot on.
There are caveats as to how the deal will run. So let me explain. If you have your investor on board and they've signed up and gone through your due diligence process, they're prepped and ready that if you give them a deal and they say, I want it, you can pass it on to solicitors. That's where you're up to if your investor is on board and checked. If they're not and you find a deal first and then find the investor, if the investor says, yes, I want it, at that point, you've got to stop that purchase process and take the investor through due diligence. And trust me when I say some investors will not go through it completely. Some will take 3 months to produce what you need. And if you've got a deal from someone who you've promised a reasonably quick sale, you can upset quite a few people on the journey. So what I would say to you is, if you're going to find the deal, that's fine, but maybe have an investor in mind rather than not knowing who's going to buy it. Otherwise, you can hit and stall. And I think this is part of the problem with the way that it's taught and why people don't get things over the line, Trish, because they don't have an investor and they don't know how to filter the investors and make sure that that deal will go ahead. And they don't realize that just because someone says, yes, I'm interested and I want that actually the cash isn't in the bank.
Yeah.
Still a lot of work to do. There's whichever way you want, it really doesn't make any difference. But there are compliance differences depending on which way that you do source.
Yeah, which is precisely why you and I are doing both elements together. So you're not having, here's how to source and then here's how to be compliant. We're actually going, the Complete Sourcing Success, our new program, which is open now if you want to apply. You can't even buy it from us. Seriously, we're making you jump through hoops. How compliant is that, Tina? You can't even buy the program for us. It's not available to buy because it's a 4-month complete, comprehensive, how to build a sourcing business and be compliant. Sherry's asking about linking up with sourcing agents. Sherry, Tina and I also have a fortnightly property sourcing group. So you can join that group. It's a site for the sourcing compliance
the
group.
next event in the events page, Sherry, but also if you go to the posts that are tagged at the top when you come into the group, there's a list there for you to tick the box as to which area you work in, and there's goodness knows how many sources have indicated what area they work in. So find the area that's closest to you and then see the other names that are mentioned on there.
Yeah,
that should help, Kim.
Yeah, so as you say, there's plenty of places to be able to network solely with sourcers. This is what we've been trying to do. It's great being in other property groups, but we also want to acknowledge that some sourcers just want to network with other sources, not instead of having a compliant business.
No. But it's a place where if you've got a problem, you don't need to feel embarrassed in front of investors if you're struggling calculating figures, for argument's sake. If you don't want investors to think, well, they don't know what they're doing, our group is a safe environment with other sources in that are all at different levels. They're not, I mean, Trish used to source, I still do. There are some in there that are right at the very beginning of the journey and some that are a little bit further on. So everyone's welcome, and they run fortnightly, and the next event is actually in our group event.
Yeah, it's a week from today, isn't it? Week from today.
Yeah. The thing that Trish and I have set up and is launched that I think is really important about the compliance, and it's better from my perspective, is that I'm not firing compliance down someone's throat morning, noon and night on block and screwing your brains up. What we've done is
well, I like that, Tina. We're screwing your brains up in the nicest possible way.
But it does, doesn't it? Because sometimes you can just get overload of something that is that intense to a lot of people. It isn't to me, but to a lot of people it is. And as much as I try to simplify the topic down, if you're dishing it out morning, noon and night, it's really, really tough to take on board and learn. But what Trish and I have done is we've taken every stage of the journey from starting the business right through to you getting your first payment check, basically. And we've weaved the compliance through each module so that it's not Tina's day for compliance or Tina's month. And you think, you know, I don't want this month again. It isn't like that. We've broken it down into the modules from start to finish, and you get the compliance and all the information that you need at exactly the right spot during that 4-month period when you actually need it. But bear in mind, we're taskmasters and we're going to get you to actually go off and do something.
Yep.
Right. It's not just sitting and listening to Trish and I. There are jobs that you guys will have to do. Because there are some standards that Trish and I stand by, and one is the reason why you have to apply to come on is we want you to confirm that you can afford this, that you are not maxing out your credit cards. No. And this is where Trish and I both agree wholeheartedly, we will not work with you if that is the case, guys, we won't. Because there are other costs over and above the cost of the course that you would have to find. So, you know, you're talking a few £1,000s that you have to have readily available that you can spend to set the business up in this 4-month period. But also we want you to be able to go away after this 4 months and say, during that 4-month period, Trish and Tina were there. We provided support with live Q&As. We provided you with a task sheet that you have to carry out this week. And yes, we do kick your backsides if you haven't done it, because if we don't do it, you won't do it.
Yeah.
And I know, because I've been there. My original mentor said, I'll kick your arse, Tina, if you don't do it. And that was what made me do it. And he did. Verbally, he kicked my backside if I hadn't done it. Because there's no buts. As he used to say, you sit on your butt.
Yeah.
You just get on with it and you do it. So, you know, we're taskmasters. We have all of the information there for everything that you could possibly need for setting up your sourcing business from scratch. And that isn't just how to deal package. That is absolutely everything, including a lot of Trish's little leads.
Yeah, I mean, as I say, one of the things we will put in strategy, you know, you will have strategy, but more importantly, it has to be something that you can implement. Otherwise, nothing, it will make no difference. As I say, you can know what compliance you need, but if you don't do it, and even a policy does not become an actionable point until you put the policy into practice. There's no point in the HMRC comes knocking on the door and you say, here's my policy, and they say, but where's your evidence that you actually do it like this? So what we've combined, as I say, is 4 months. It's an intensive 4 months program of everything that you need. I'll be doing all of the business elements, how to set the business up, how to make sure that your marketing is on point, how to get your leads. We have extra modules on joint ventures, if that's the direction that you are going in with some of these. Yeah. And as I say, yeah, you can't buy it from us today because we are asking people to put themselves forward who are interested in joining us in this first launch for 4 months. If you want to get that information, Tina, probably the best thing for you and I to do is we will put a link in this thread when we've closed down the thread. It will take you to a page that's on my website, and you can find out more information. And if you opt in, it will then send you some more information, and it's up to you to decide. But we're saying now, when you read the landing page, it will say very clearly, only register your interest if you are absolutely serious that this is something that's right for you at this stage. The big one being, this is not a £200, here's a course for 2 hours and now off you pop. and do this. We are dead serious, but in the nicest possible way. We're dead serious.
This is basically mine and Trish's knowledge on sourcing and everything that goes with it, guys, in a box, including all of the packs that I use for investors, sellers, property, all of your compliance documents, policies, procedures, terms of business agreement. Between us, Trish and I have got tons and tons of knowledge and information, guides and documents that you could, you know, it would take you more than 4 months to go through a lot of them. There's tons and tons of information to help and support you. But more importantly than that, you have our support and guidance for that 4-month period, because we will be doing lives, probably on Zoom or a Facebook group possibly, or whichever way we decide, but probably Zoom, where you can, we will set you tasks, and if you've got any queries, you can then come on and say, okay, I don't understand what I have to do this week. Can you explain it?
Yeah, Sherry's just asked another question. How do I manage the program with multiple people? Sherry, it is a group program. If this was being done on a one-to-one basis, it would be even more expensive, you know, than it is right now. So as I say, it is the Rolls Royce of sourcing. It combines all the business elements, all of the compliance stuff that you're gonna need to get yourself up to standard.
There'll be certain things that you will have to attend, but they will be recorded if you can't attend. Tasks will be set weekly, sometimes monthly, depending on what that task is.
What it is,
and we'll work with you guys as to, you know, if you have questions and you think we haven't covered them, then ask. Because when we can come up with stuff, we don't think of absolutely everything. So, you know,
Sherry, the other thing is, you know, we have limited the number. I'll not say what the number is, but we have limited the number of people because we've actually discounted the program from what it will be. And I hate that kind of marketing speak. But we have said you need to have your application in, because it is by application. Even if you have the money to throw at us tonight, we are going to, the application's not long. But it asks some fundamental questions. Then all you need to basically do is to tell us that you know, we need to answer those questions, get it into us soon. But the numbers are limited. That's how we're managing it. Don't forget, there are 2 of us. Tina obviously will take the lead on all the compliance stuff. I will take the lead on all the business elements and marketing stuff. And there will be Q&As. There'll be live Q&As, live coaching, but we've backed that all up with tons and tons of additional resources. So it will be carefully managed, and that's why the numbers will be capped. So if you're interested, we'll put the link here. But I've said to somebody today, don't hang around until 11:59 on the 2nd of, you know, or 5th of April, and then say, oh my God, I wish I'd had my application in by now. We already have, I think, 2 in today anyway, and we've only just launched this, so you know, we know we're going to fill the places that we have available.
And we aren't running these every month, guys. These will be a maximum of twice a year, so please don't think these are going to be repeated anytime soon. They are not. We will be running these maximum twice a year, so if you're in a position to be able to start, this is definitely for you guys. Or if you're part way through but you have the cash to be able to do everything in one go, that's absolutely fine. If you don't, then that's still absolutely fine. We accept that this is not for everyone, and not everyone has the cash. We put this together because we believe that this is what the education sector in sourcing desperately needs, in our opinion, because we see gaps and we want to plug those gaps. Question from somebody else about filtering on a website, but I've lost it off my feed on Facebook.
Let me go back and have a little look. I think it was Scott. Yes, it was. Scott, there's 2 questions. We've got Julie asking, is it for people who are starting from scratch? But let's go back to Scott. Julie, we'll come back to your question in a wee moment. Would having a filter system on your website help filter out investors that aren't as serious? For example, when they show interest, have a section where they have to fill in their details. If it was me and I wasn't serious, I wouldn't waste my time filling in details. Scott, that's a great question. And actually, you will see that because you've already, you know, because people who've landed on the page that's inquiring about our program, we put a filtering question in there. The filtering question is, well, there's 3 filtering questions. Are you ready? Are you able? Are you willing? The able bit is, we've told you what the price of this is going to be. Because if that is the barrier for some people, and it will be, then we don't want you to fill in the registration details if you're not able to make that commitment right now. That's not to say Tina and I won't provide you with other training, because we have other modules that we will do other stuff with, but it's not part of this program. So having a filter can be useful. However, and this is the only thing this is what I want to sort of give you a bit of advice on. If you put a filter in to a completely cold audience, now the most of the people who've seen this, who've seen our page and seen this program so far, are not cold. They're people who know Tina and I. You've heard us speak, you know what we're passionate about, you know what we stand for, and you know why we are saying this is why we put this filter in. If you're putting in a filter that's for a cold audience, that can be a bit difficult, you know. So by all means put in some qualifying stuff, but think about whether the people seeing that page are people who've come in cold and have never met you, don't know anything about you, or whether they've come in from some other part of your marketing. And Scott, that's one of the things we're going to talk about is funnels. If you want to talk sales funnels, I can talk to them until the cows come home. But we're going to talk about how you actually get people into your world who understand who you are, what you stand for, and what you do business with, and how you do business, and to use some of that to generate cold leads as well as those red hot, you know, pretty warm lead stuff. So you can do filters. Filters are great, but you've got to be cautious and careful and really specific about how you're going to use them.
Yeah, and what the reason for the filter is, what information are you looking for? Because from the perspective of an investor, if you start asking personal questions at that point, they won't respond to it. So you could be losing people that may come on board. Just as a tip for you this evening, what we do when we get people expressing an interest in what we do is the first thing we say to them is, are you interested in having a one-to-one telephone conversation? Can we have an email from you so that I can send you a link so that you can book it? And then you have the email from them. And when they book a telephone call, you've got a mobile number. So you've got two means of communication, but you haven't asked for too much information up front. What you've said is, yes, it would be great to have a chat with you to see if we can work. How about a telephone chat or a Zoom or whatever it is that you want? And use that initial cutoff point to filter those that want to talk to you. And they will give you their email to do it and give you a mobile number for calling or create a Zoom call, because you'd be surprised how many people you lose just at that point when you say you've got to go and book a call with me. And I know that Trish is smiling because
right. Yeah,
you're really, really shocked as to how many people will say, well, just send me the information that you've got and what deals you've got. No. So that's how I do it initially, is I do it that way.
Yeah. And that's what it says. So we're, you know, you're going to use a number of different ways to market, Scott. You're going to use a whole host of different ways, whether it's attracting inquiries from sellers or whether it's attracting inquiries from potential investors. The way you do it, the format may be similar, but the way you do it may be different. Yeah, and again, it's a matter of also being really clear where you want to put your effort. So again, if you were talking about very ultra high net worth investors, the likelihood of them landing on your website and filling in all their details, qualifying themselves, is almost zero. If you're working with ultra high net worth clients, you're more likely to attract those clients by actually spending your time being in their world, being in their networks, and being comfortable with being around people who've got money, because some people are not comfortable around people who've got money, especially if like me, you've not come from money yourself. So we'll talk about some of those blocks and barriers in the program because they're real and they can really mess up your progress. Julie was asking the question, Tina, is this for people starting from scratch?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you can jump in with us even if you're established and you need that, almost like you've done training, but you never really got it off the ground. You're very welcome to apply. You're very welcome to apply.
Any level, Trish, because at any level, I guarantee, regardless of what level thing you're at, you will learn a ton. You will learn an absolute ton of stuff from Trish and I, regardless of what level thing you think that you're at, whether you're up and running, whether you're just starting out. Kim has gone on to say, I've been sitting on my hands for a while. I've done your compliance course last year, Tina. I'm in the process of setting up my website, have a property limited company, but not through the SIC code. I'll have to check. Do you think this course is suitable for me? Absolutely, Kim. If you want to set up a sourcing business, you want hand holding for 4 months with basically everything given to you and given to you in modules as a step-by-step basis, not all chucked at you in 2 days, sitting in front of a stage where you've got handwritten notes and then nobody at the end of the phone is interested in you. This is 4 months working with Trish and I.
Absolutely.
So absolutely, and Julie as well. It doesn't really make any difference if you haven't got a clue what you're doing, but you believe you want to do sourcing. As long as you know sourcing is definitely for you, because otherwise I wouldn't recommend anyone spends a few £1,000s if you're not sure.
No,
if you're not
sure, if you don't want to do this as a business, yeah. 100%.
If you're not sure, drop me an email and we'll have a chat.
Yeah.
And I can give you some basic understanding and you can make your mind up from there. If you're not sure, fine. But if you're absolutely sure and you're part way through the setup, this course is absolutely for you.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And guys, we want to say, we know how it feels to be that person, where you've done the training, you've done courses here, there, and yon, and there's still something missing. There's still an element that you feel, you believe, is the thing that's stopping you turning it into a business. This is the bits that we have put together. Our problem hasn't been what to include. Our problem has been what do we take out? We could have made this a year-long mentorship. We seriously could have made this a year-long mentorship. But what we've really wanted to do in this one, which is why we're doing it again by application, is not because we feel like we're up here somewhere, but we want to make this an experience where you've got an intensive period of work, you've got the support, you've got the space to ask questions in an environment where no one is going to judge where you've been or what you've done, or whether you've done something a year ago or 2 years ago and haven't made anything of it. No one is going to be going, well, what the hell have you been doing?
I don't care if you source 10 deals and you're not compliant. That isn't the problem. The thing is that we want to improve the standards in the sector, and this is mine and Trish's way of working together and doing that and helping and supporting you guys. I get a lot of people coming to me and saying, I did a course, but now this has happened with the investor and they've asked this, and I have no idea what to say, Tina. This is your chance to come and work with us for 4 months, get all of your ducks in a row. And when something happens and you think, what do I do now? You drop us a message in the Facebook group. On the next Q&A that we run, that's your first question. The investors ask this, what do I say?
Where do I go?
This is what Trish and I are there for, to help you guys through.
Yeah. So we're going to run a couple more live Q&As like this one. We've got one set up again next week, and obviously next week we also have the property sourcers group as well. And join those ones. We should set it up 2 years ago. Julie, I totally get it. But Tina and I have had this conversation over coffee with Tony on numerous occasions, and we have sat on the idea for a long time. Again, not because we're not capable of doing it before now, because we run our own training stuff anyway. But I guess part of it is just that we're fed up seeing people knocking sourcers, and we're fed up seeing people saying that loads of folk are going on training and they're not making it any money at it at all. Does it cover packaging to sale? Yes.
Everything.
Kim, yes, is the answer.
Anything to do with sourcing, Kim, it covers.
Including how to present the deal.
Yeah.
How to do not just due diligence on the deal, but how to think about what the exits might be if the primary exit that you're planning and selling it to investors doesn't work out.
Yeah, plan A, plan B, Kim.
We've covered that, because they're the things when we were getting started that you were making them up as you went along, because no one said, hey, you need to think about these things, right? We've already thought about the stuff that you probably haven't even thought about, because experience has taught us what else can go wrong or what else you need to bring into your business. That's why we're doing this now, because we're over hearing people saying this is a non-job. It's not true. It's not true. Simply wrong.
There were other people saying that this is set up and done and you'll get money in the bank in a month, because that isn't true.
That's also not true.
There were other people saying that this is sort of like an entry-level easy option. No setting up of a business is easy. Sourcing is no different. It takes time, it takes effort, it takes focus, and you will have to have all of those things to be able to make it a success.
Yeah. So guys, I think are we? You know, we're an hour and 10 minutes in. Any other questions from guys who are watching? Other than thank you so much for everybody showing up. I mean, it's amazing. Got quite a few people watching us tonight, so that's cool.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So Tina, you know, I think we'll because the recording will stay up, won't it? So you and I
will stay in the group. If after we finish, Trish, can you bob the link into the thread for the page for me?
Yeah, I will do.
Go and have a look if that's what they want to do. If anyone's got any questions, not sure about anything, drop either Trish or I a direct message, and either Trish or I will have a chat with you about any questions that you've got. Not a problem there, no charge for the call.
Yeah, we don't mind doing one-to-ones if some guys have specific questions they don't want to ask on here.
Yeah,
that's absolutely fine.
Get in touch with us. It's absolutely fine. We want everyone before they come on board to be absolutely comfortable with what they're going to get, how much it's going to cost, and how it will work, etc., etc. So please don't be afraid to just direct messages and ask any questions that you don't want to put on the public forum.
And don't be afraid that the application is 200 pages long. How long is your inside leg? We have got some very simple 4 qualifying questions, and as I say, everybody, I think Alan, you've heard us speak, I know, and you've been a great supporter obviously of the network that we're running now as well, and you know that when we say that we want people to be, we want it to be right for the people who come, and this is not a matter of whack this on your credit card and max it out in order to enrich Tina and I with your money. We're not interested in that. It has to be the right people. And if you're not at that stage yet, please don't think that means we're not interested in you. We are. Stay in the group here, join the Sources Network because we have a specific network. Please don't think that if you're not at the level to come on board with this program right now, that we have other stuff for you. And in fact, we'll have even more in the pipeline over the next 6 months.
There's new stuff coming through in the next 6 to 12 months, guys, so don't worry about that. And don't think for one moment that when you get on this, that there's an upsell to something that's huge.
Yeah, there's no £27,000 program coming out.
This is everything that Trish and I have got in this. The only way that we could do anything more with this is extending the length of time, because that's the only thing that we could do. There's nothing else that we could give you guys. So there's nothing else over and above this. There's no, you've got this, now if you want to know this, you've got to pay this. There's none of that. We don't work that way. And I hope that you guys know that of us now. You've been around in the Facebook group for long enough. We just don't operate like that.
Yeah, it's not our thing.
No.
So
thanks everyone for attending. It's been fantastic. Thank you for all of the questions. Thank you for Trish for tagging along. I'm sure that we'll be chatting again soon. Bye to everyone. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and we'll see you again soon. Bye for now.
See you later.